For millennia, we looked up. The stars were dreams, myths, poems written in light. Our home, this fragile blue world, was our entire existence, a cradle of life, infinite ocean. The 21st century was our infancy, the first stumbling steps on the moon, the first rovers on Mars, scratching at the dust like a child drawing in the sand. But then we learned to run. The breakthrough wasn't a weapon, it was a key. The quantum plasma drive. It didn't push against the void, it folded it. The solar system, once a vast expanse that would take a lifetime to cross, became a neighborhood. And humanity became its landlord. Mars was first, not with domes and flags, but with might. Great orbital plates lowered onto the red plains, and from them rose the forged cities of the Tharsis Plateau. They didn't suck air from the thin sky, they manufactured it. They didn't mine the iron core, they tapped it. The red planet turned black with industry, its heartbeat the relentless, world-shaking thump of the Mars drivers, firing refined or into the waiting freighters at Lagrange Point. And where industry thrives, an army follows. The Martian Marine Corps, forged not in mud and trench, but in vacuum and hurricane-force dust storms. Their armor wasn't cloth and ceramic, it was polyalloy-powered exoskeletons, capable of operating in the crushing pressure of Venus's upper atmosphere or the absolute zero of the Kuiper Belt. Their rifles fired hyper-accelerated tungsten slugs that could core a battle tank from 10 kilometers away. This was not an army of conquest, it was an army of dominion. But Mars was merely the anvil, Jupiter was the shield. The Jovian orbit became a fortress. Battle stations the size of small moons, cloaked in radiation-scattering alloys, hung in the swirling, violent clouds of the gas giant. Their power is drawn not from reactors, but from the planet's own titanic magnetosphere. The Jovian watch a fleet of leviathans, each ship a city, their hulls gleaming with lance batteries that could slice a continent in half. And for the sword we looked to the sun, Mercury, a hellscape of burning rock and absolute fury. Here we built the Sun-Yards, orbital factories that drank the raw, unfiltered fury of our star. Here the hulls of the great planet breaker, dreadnoughts, were forged in solar furnaces. The Un's oblivion, the UNS Terra's wrath, these were not ships. They were moving mountains of weaponized anger, their very existence a declaration. The solar system is ours. For a century, we believed our declaration had been heard, that the silence was acquiescence. We were the masters of soul, a multiplanetary species, the pinnacle of evolution, technology, and power. We were wrong. The first anomaly was at the edge of the Kuiper Belt, a gravitational flicker, a shadow that consumed a probe signal, not by blocking it, but by unmaking it. Then another, closer to Neptune. A shard of ice the size of the Himalayas was just gone, not shattered, vaporized with an energy signature that defied every law of physics we had written. This was not a natural phenomenon. This was a footprint. And it was not facing outward. It was facing in towards us. We were not the hunters. We had become the game. Our best A is, our deepest minds, pieced it together from fragments of corrupted data and cosmic radiation scars. We call them the Krylax, a species not of water and rock, but of plasma and dark matter. a hive-mind consciousness that had consumed its own star system millennia ago. They don't travel in ships as we know them. They ride in gravity-wrapped singularities, cloaked in event horizons. This was not an expedition. It was a vanguard. A scouting party for an empire of consumption that has been moving from star to star for 100,000 years, and they are not curious. They are hungry. And our system is next on the menu. They think we are an infestation to be cleaned from a rock. They will find us to be a hornet's nest built of tungsten and wrapped in fire. They will meet the Martian marines in the rings of Saturn. They will feel the wrath of the Jovian lances in the dark of the asteroid belt. They will break themselves upon the fortress of Earth. They have known war. They have known conquest. But they have never known us. They have never known the terrifying, abominable military might of a species that refused to die in its cradle. A species that has already conquered hellscapes and turned them into home. The age of dreaming is over. There are no more poems in the light. There is only the light of weapons fire in the eternal dark. We look up now not with wonder, but with watchful eyes. Our great technologies, our abominable might, it was never about ruling the stars. It was about having enough room to defend our home. The cradle is armed. The cradle is waiting. Let the siege of soul begin. The simulations have been run. The projections are grim. The outcome is uncertain. We have shown you our strength. We have shown you the enemy. The question is no longer if they are coming, but what will be left when they are done. Silence? What comes after a declaration of war is the wait. A solar system holds its breath. The great engines of Mercury grow cold. The mass drivers of Mars fall still. The only sound across 1 billion miles of conquered space is the hum of capacitors holding a charge and the frantic, silent screaming of the quantum entanglement comes networks buzzing with data and dread. This is the lull, the terrible, stretching moment between the flash of lightning and the crash of thunder. The first signal wasn't from the watch, it was from Karen. The listening post there. It wasn't a distress call. It was a scream, a data burst of pure, unfiltered telemetry. It showed the Kuiper Belt object Arakoth not being destroyed, but being unmade. Its geometry simplifying, its atomic bonds selectively severed, like a sculptor subtracting everything that wasn't his vision. The Jovian Battle Directorate reacted. The dreadnought Oblivion, on patrol in the Neptune crossing, folded space. It arrived at the edge of our dominion, not to a battlefield, but to a gallery of horrors. 3 Krylax vessels. They were not ships. They were wounds in reality. Non-Euclidean nightmares of twisted light and gravitational lensing. They did not attack the Oblivion. They acknowledged it. And with that acknowledgement, they imposed their physics. The Oblivion S-shields flared and died, not from overload, but from rejection. The very laws that allowed them to exist were locally rewritten, thence in null space projectors fired. Not beams, but spheres of absolute nothingness. They drifted towards the dreadnought. Where they touched, matter ceased to be. No explosion, no debris, just deletion. The mightiest weapon in humanity's arsenal was erased from existence in less than 6 seconds. The only thing it managed to do was die loudly enough for the rest of us to hear. We learned our first painful lesson. We could not win a battle of annihilation. Our projectiles passed through their distorted gravitational fields. Our energy weapons were absorbed or reflected. They fought by rules written in a dark universe we did not understand. So we wrote new rules, ours, the rule of attrition, the rule of blood and silicon. Admiral Valeriana of the Jovian Watch gave the order, no more grand duels. We would not fight a dragon with a sword, we would fight it with 1,000,000 poisoned needles. The Krylax moved inward, towards the inner system, and we made every inch cost them. The asteroid belt became a killing field. Cloaked mines that didn't explode but detonated into singularities that lasted a microsecond, long enough to disrupt their coherence. Swarms of AI-piloted drones, each a simple missile with a primitive fission warhead. 10,000 would be wiped away by a wave of null energy. Then 10,000 more would take their place. We watched the casualty reports scroll. Not ships, but production figures from the Forge cities. We were trading resources for time, metal for moments, and we were bleeding. Oh, how we were bleeding! Time was the one resource we were running out of. But in the blood-soaked math of war, a pattern emerged, a flaw. The Krylax vessels, for all their power, were predictable. Their movements were efficient, logical. They always took the path of least resistance through our minefields. They always prioritized the largest threats. Admiral Valeriana saw it. It wasn't a flaw in their technology, it was a flaw in their mind, the hive mind. It was a supreme, hyper-intelligent tactician, but it was also arrogant. It had never faced an enemy that could think as chaotically, as creatively as we do. The plan was called the Martian Gambit. We would offer it a threat it could not ignore. We would make Mars the anvil. The entire Jovian fleet, what was left of it, would break cover. It would make a suicidal sprint from the outer system, drawing the Krylax vanguard into the Mars orbital zone. It was a bait of unimaginable value. And as the Krylax focused on the fleet, they would position themselves perfectly between Mars and its own greatest weapon, the Tharsis Mars Driver, the pride of Mars, built to fire mountains of or into space. For a century, it was the engine of our economy. On this day, it became the hammer of our vengeance. The Jovian fleet broke into Martian space, shields flickering, hulls bleeding atmosphere. The Krylax followed, their forms twisting reality, null spheres reaching out to consume our last great warships. They were exactly where we needed them to be. And then Mars fired, not metal. A projectile the size of a skyscraper, tipped with a stabilized singularity a tiny. Artificial black hole powered by the entire output of the Mercury Sun-Yards for a full minute. There was no sound in the vacuum, only the light. A streak of tortured spacetime, a lance of impossible physics screaming across the orbital plane. It did not simply hit a Krylax vessel. It struck the heart of their formation, the artificial singularity destabilized. It didn't delete matter, it consumed it. The gravitational shear was unlike anything ever witnessed. 2 of the nightmare vessels were ripped into spirals of degenerate matter and swallowed into nothingness. A third was crippled, its reality-bending field flickering and dying, revealing, for the first time, a physical, vulnerable structure beneath a grotesque, crystalline core that bled light. The hive mind recoiled. For the first time, it had felt pain. It had felt loss. The survivors of the Jovian fleet, shattered but victorious, limped home to a hero's welcome. We had drawn first blood. But victory is a fleeting candle in an ocean of night. Our gambit worked. Because the enemy allowed itself to be predictable, because it underestimated us. It will not make that mistake again. And our long-range sensors, the ones we pushed into the Oort cloud during the fight, they have picked up a new signal, not a scream, a hum. A gravitational tide that is shifting the very comets in that frozen waste. The vanguard we fought ... The force that pushed us to the brink of extinction ... was just that, a vanguard. The tip of the spear. The main Krylax fleet is now entering the outer system. Its signature is not 3 wounds, in reality it is or cancer. A blotch of wrongness 100,000 miles wide, moving towards us, and it is waking up. The war we prepared for is over. The war we must fight has just begun. This will not be a battle of fleets. It will be a war of survival. A war fought in the ruins of our orbitals, in the tunnels of our conquered moons, in the streets of our burning cities. We have lost the luxury of hope. All we have left is defiance. We thought we were conquering the solar system for glory. We were wrong. We were building a fortress. We were preparing a battlefield. Let them come. Let them see how hard a cornered animal can bite. Let them learn the price of a world. The siege of Sol continues. The battle lines are drawn. The fate of humanity hangs in the balance, but this war is not yet over. This story is still being written. Your outpost in this vast, informational front is this very channel. Here we decrypt the signals. Here we analyze the enemy's movements. Here we chronicle the resilience of the human spirit. Do not let this signal be lost to the silent dark. Subscribe, fortify this channel, enlist in our ranks. Every new soldier strengthens our network.